My name is Matt Pullen. I'm Product Marketing Manager for Education here at Jamf. And today, in our session, Simplify, Secure, and Succeed, we'll be taking a look at what's new in Jamf for Education. Starting with some introductions, we'll just want to take a look at what we're doing and from an education point of view to really support institutions to make sure they get the most out of their deployments, to make them as simple as possible. We'll then take a look at both management, security, and also the classroom integration of technology to make sure you get the best out of your deployment. Let's get going. We know that technology for IT is very different to technology for learning. One of the key things that we know IT can develop are the skills around the use of IT itself. This is a very traditional approach, still very valuable within schools, but focuses more on what the devices do to support IT itself. Things like word processing, spreadsheets, accessing the internet, or even filing things. That's how we use technology effectively. But there is a focus more on how technology can be used for learning. How does it change how students can interact with tools within the classroom to get more out of their learning experience? How can teachers utilize the tools to support with accessibility or different ways for students to access content? How does it support schools when it comes to learning design or even learning spaces? Because technology empowers people to do so many different things, it can really change a curriculum focus. Now, in both cases, IT admins are tasked with making sure they do a lot of the hard work behind the scenes to make sure this is set up. One may be a little bit more of a traditional approach to getting those devices set up, whilst the one that focuses on learning may take a little bit more of an understanding about those end user needs and communication with curriculum leadership to make sure they're set up specifically. We see this at Jamf as purposeful deployment, that every user has access to a personalized device that delivers privacy and security and ultimately empowers student success. And when we look at this as part of our ecosystem, we know that schools will choose Apple devices for the function that it brings, the accessibility it offers, and that mobility and creativity that really support how schools use these differently in the classroom to a more traditional device like a laptop. But that doesn't mean that management should suffer. We manage those devices to make sure they can be set up simply and easily with zero-touch deployment, and that automation becomes a key part in making sure things are up to date at all times, be that the operating system or the applications themselves. And we also start to think differently about how technology can be used, with return to service, meaning if you have ad hoc users use those devices, return to service can put it back into its default state really simply and easily, meaning that device can be used by another user without the worry of any of that data being transferred between them. But we don't see IT's role stopping from a management point there. We see IT really going into the classroom to help the management and engagement of teachers with those devices. Things like Jamf Teacher, Jamf Student, combined with Apple Classroom, really empower that teacher to make sure devices are set up specifically for their learning intentions, meaning they can feel a lot more confident using technology, which ultimately means schools get a better return of investment and means less hassle for IT admins and less help desk tickets. And we extend that even further when we start to think about empowering the educator with tools that integrate specifically into their specific classroom workflows. Thinking about feedback, assessment, handwriting, or many other things that mean a teacher has that toolkit to enable them to do their job more effectively without distractions. This is a critical element, meaning that that teacher can see exactly how that device supports them in their classrooms. And with more devices in the hands of more people that may have less of a knowledge around things like cyber attacks, security is critical to have and built directly into that rollout, making sure that devices, regardless of where they're accessing the network, are not harming that network with any phishing or malware attacks, and that students have access to only the content that they should have, depending on their age or the lessons that they're in. This is a critical step to make sure that everybody feels empowered and that you have a unique deployment to meet everybody's needs. And as we look at capabilities to meet those needs, we can see that with our Jamf for K-12 offer, there is a whole range of capabilities that come in part of it. These are just a few, and we've highlighted first some of those key capabilities that may be front and center for an IT admin. But we can also start to bring out some of those additional bespoke IT admin controls that really elevate your role, that take it to that next level, making it even easier for you to do things, but also make sure that those end users are functioning as they need to. If we just take Apple TV management, for example, a key way to make sure that classrooms are set up effectively, and in Jamf, why not automate that process of maintaining and managing those devices without having to go from classroom to classroom? Essential, especially in schools that may have 30 to 40 classrooms, having an Apple TV deployed to them. And then when we look at some of those capabilities that go beyond the scope of the IT admin, how do we think about parental controls, classroom management, integration with some of those third-party tools? How do we get those devices set up so that we can empower other users to use the devices effectively without increasing the need for IT help desk tickets? And as we talk about people and purpose, let's just take a moment to just understand some of those different purposes that different institutions might have. From an IT admin point of view, traditionally, setting up those devices, managing the inventory, and making sure that apps or devices are all updated is a critical part of your workflow. But as we start to put those devices into the hands of end users, different people and personas start to come into play. From a curriculum leader point of view, they're going to want to know that the curriculum that they've designed and the devices that have been assigned meet the needs of that curriculum. They don't want to be handing out devices into a classroom that cause more confusion and disturbance, because that doesn't meet the curriculum need. Having the right device and applications in place really helps that curriculum leader utilize the devices to the best of their ability and helps that IT admin look like the hero of the classroom. And as we get into the classroom, educators want to know that the devices that they're using are going to make their lives easier. Is it supporting them with feedback, assessment, or is it causing a distraction as students are going into things they shouldn't go into? This is critical and why we've thought deeply around that classroom experience and how we can give confidence to educators when using devices. And should those devices go home at the end of the day, how do we equally support parents and carers with what those devices can do? It's essential that parents and carers are on board with any technology deployment. And as we know devices can really extend learning beyond the classroom, it's equally important to make sure that parents have that control over those devices when they're in their own homes. We do that with Jamf Parent, and we think it's a great opportunity for parents to become part of that deployment and conversation around technology in schools. Now let's take a look at some of the updates that we've recently brought to Jamf that can really support, first off, the management of those devices. Let's start with blueprints. Blueprints is how we've brought DDM to simplify that management. Now, since DDM, or declarative device management, isn't like conventional MDM that we're used to, we needed a way of configuring these declarations, and blueprints was our solution. With software updates enforced by DDM, an admin sets the date in which the device must be updated by, and also which version of the OS to update to. We can create different blueprints for different use cases and or device groups. Things such as test devices for IT or a group of users that are early adopters, so you can try things out in a wild but controlled way. The user's notified that the admin has required an update by a certain point in time. They then can decide to update straight away or defer until the deadline. If the user defers it, they will get regular reminders. Once the deadline hits, the device will update regardless of what the user wants. The user will get a countdown before it reboots. And the best part, blueprints and declarations are clever. So even if the device isn't being used and is locked by a passcode, the device will update at that scheduled time. Now we've taken a look here at managed software updates, but you'll also notice math notes being there as a critical declaration. This, really important to education users, brings the ability for IT to be able to manage whether Maths Notes is on or off on a student device, making that confidence in the classroom that it's only going to be used when teachers want it to be used effectively. And speaking of teachers, we've also thought about the Mac onboarding solution. With Setup Manager, schools can now think differently about how they provide that Mac to the end user and give confidence that the end user knows exactly what is taking place. Going through those traditional steps sometimes leaves the end user in the dark as to what's taking place, and having a blank screen doing things often leaves them disconnected to the process. Here, in Setup Manager, you can see it walks those educators or end users through the steps, talking about which apps are going to be downloaded or programs that are going to be installed onto their device. Although this is just showcasing to those end users what's happening, it gives confidence to those end users that the device that they've been given is actually for them to use. Once it's gone through the process of setting up all of these different elements and showcasing how long it's going to take to do the next step, the next part is the simple part where teachers just need to add in their user credentials and get their device set up for specifically their use. Once signed in, the wallpaper is going to change. It's going to show them all of those applications are already on the device and they're ready to go, connecting the end user to the IT process along the line. Next, let's take a look at some of the security settings that we have in place to really support that whole deployment and make sure it's secure and make sure IT admins can rest easy at the end of the day when more devices are used. We're really proud of how we have our network threat prevention directly on the devices themselves. We know that there's a rise in cybersecurity attacks, and schools need to make sure that with more devices in the hands of end users, that their networks are protected from things like phishing, malware, and cryptojacking. And that you can even get reports on some of those elements so that you can make sure that education of those end users' habits can equally be protected. We believe that this is really important, whether you're on iPad or Mac, or even, in this case, Chromebook or Windows devices. We know that students, teachers, or other end users in education are becoming a clear target for these engineered attacks, and we want to make sure that more devices doesn't mean more security incidents. And then we go even further, making sure that that threat prevention is directly on the device. Most security tools treat Apple devices like any other endpoint, but we saw things differently. From day one, we built our security solution specifically for Apple, not just compatible, truly in sync with Apple's native security frameworks. And that changes everything. Imagine a security guard who doesn't need to call HQ for every decision. Instead, they live right on the device, using advanced machine learning to detect and stop threats like phishing attempts as they happen. No delays, no cloud round trips, just real-time protection that gets smarter with every interaction. Because the intelligence lives on the device, your users enjoy powerful protection without the usual trade-offs. No lag, no invisible data collection, just smooth, seamless performance. And the privacy you expect from an Apple experience. And here's the best part. This isn't some clunky overlay. We use Apple's own native technologies to deliver enterprise-grade security that feels like it was designed by Apple themselves. No SSL inspection, no packet sniffing, just clean, efficient defense that respects your users and keeps your institution safe. Of course, you're still in control. You can create custom rules tailored to your needs, all evaluated locally, right on the device. It's flexible, it's powerful, and it puts you firmly in the driver's seat. The result? Security that's strong, smart, and invisible, delivering the protection you need, the privacy you expect, and the experience your end users will love. And when we talk about our end users, how about thinking about how those devices meet the needs of different end users at different times? As devices go home at the end of the day, weekends, or even during term time holidays, we start to think about how we might want to set up our content filters to meet those individual needs. Our privacy settings enable you to be able to change that to meet the needs of the time the device is being used. Sometimes those devices are used by a wider family, and you might want different content filtering in place for the weekend or during term time. This way, you can have all of the controls of that, making sure it's always set up for exactly how the end user expects it to be used. Now, let's move into the classroom. As we said, IT impact should go beyond the classroom door, helping end users use the devices effectively and meet their specific needs, giving confidence to those end users that everything is set up exactly as it needs to be. Here, we're going to take a look at how Class Assigner really supports the IT admin to simplify the process and empower classroom teachers to be able to get devices set up for exactly the end user that it's designed to be used for. In this case, on the student device, the device is just downloading its simple setup to have the specific things on the device to help with the next stage. It's configuring the iPad to have the Class Assigner app to enable the student who gets issued that device to assign it for themselves. This might seem simplified, but actually, for the end user, this really empowers the student to feel in control. That device is theirs, but at this point, it doesn't have everything on it that they need in order to do the work they want to do. On the student device, they have a simple application that is the only application they need. On the teacher device, they can open the Class Assigner app and go through all of the different classes that have been assigned to them with all of the rosters in place. Every class that they have is sorted out with Jamf Teacher, with Jamf School, making sure that all of this is in place for them to access their classes. When they find their class that they want to use, they'll have access to their full roster, and all of the students are in that roster. By searching for specific students, they can find the exact QR code that that student will need to register their device to the teacher, giving them their unique settings. At this point, the student can open their Class Assigner app, which is going to open up the QR reader on their device. They then simply need to scan the teacher device and that QR code, and at this point, that device is now registered to them. The magic behind the scenes in Jamf School or Jamf Pro is assigning that device to that student, along with all of the applications and anything else that the school deems is relevant for that end user. Bypassing so many IT issues by making sure that student and teacher are connected. Their apps are being downloaded directly onto the device, which is assigned to them and their year group. And even the wallpaper will change to make sure it's relevant to that end user as well, personalizing the whole experience. And whilst we talk about personalizing the experience, we have to talk about Jamf Teacher. This is our fantastic tool that really helps teachers keep their children in their classes focused on learning at all times. We really think this is a powerful way to make sure devices are meeting the needs of the students and teachers without any distractions. Teachers can simply choose the applications that are relevant to that period of time, and all other applications will be removed from the device, meaning students aren't going to be distracted by going off into any applications that aren't relevant. At any point, teachers can add or remove additional applications and even think about websites and other restrictions. We've made that part even easier for curriculum leaders to manage by creating lesson templates, which mean you can create these specifically for a curriculum. This means that websites, applications, restrictions can all be set in one place, and teachers in the classroom simply just push start to make sure they're deployed when they're needed in the classroom. This is a really simple way to bring confidence to teachers that the curriculum needs are being met and technology is not going to be a distraction at any point. This is critical as schools start to look at one-to-one deployments to support teaching and learning, but want to make sure teachers are confident in the fact that those devices are not going to cause distractions and give them additional headaches in the classroom. And as we start to give teachers more control, they're probably going to want to request additional apps. Now, traditionally, this is done through additional forms or surveys where IT admin have to check on what's being requested. But we've simplified this process by building this directly into Jamf Teacher. Now, teachers can look through pre-approved apps, suggested apps from the Education Ecosystem Partner Program from Apple, or the full App Store. They can see these curated lists of applications that are specific to what they might need in the classroom, meaning they don't have to go through the entire app catalog to see what might be useful. These recommended apps help them with their process. And to simplify that process back to IT, they simply tap on the request button to send that request through to IT via Jamf School. This keeps the process really neat and simple. No additional forms, no additional spreadsheets to check, just a process where the teacher requests and gives a reason for the request, having already assigned it to their class or students in that class. IT then just need to approve or decline that, and once done, that application will be sent out to those devices that's already been set in place. This really streamlines the process and makes sure that communication between teacher and IT is still paramount. And that is how we move things forward in education. Now, if you want to learn more about Jamf Educator, we have a great simulated program at educator.jamf.com where you can provide teachers with a simulated experience, which means IT admins don't need to set up all of this with an active instance, meaning no impact on any actual devices being used, but teachers can play around with the different settings and configurations to see how this can support them in their classroom. You can go further with Jamf Educator as well and learn more about other ways that technology can be used, both informative from Jamf side, as well as some links to some great Apple resources. And we'd also love people to share their fantastic stories of impact, because we know that's how people learn from each other. You can scan the QR code and get started today. It's absolutely free, and we look forward to you joining our community. And as we talk about community, of course, we're nothing without our customers, and that's proven with our Jamf Nation community. This online forum is home to over 100,000 Apple IT-focused individuals that learn from each other, discuss best practices, and have access to a wealth of resources and third-party tools. You can create a free account today and join in that discussion. A great place to go and have any of your IT questions answered by fellow IT professionals. We also have our marketplace, tools and resources to help you get the most out of your Jamf platform and make it even more useful to your end users. We've highlighted a few of those things today where you can extend the educational tools to make sure that we integrate directly into functional tools that support that classroom experience. And finally, please do join us at JNUC, our annual convention, this year being held in Denver, Colorado from October 7th through to the 9th. Registration is open now and you can register at any time. And we do hope you can join us and hear more from our customers and Jamf as we highlight all the updates that we're bringing to Jamf in education over this year. That's it for this session. We really do hope you found it insightful and have learned some information that can help you with your education deployment going even further with Jamf.